Let me ask you something. What would happen if, starting tomorrow, you took just 1 hour a day and used it to build the life you actually want? 1 hour, 60 minutes, every single day, not to catch up, not to survive, but to lead your life instead of reacting to it. Most people won't even consider that question seriously. Why? Because they've been conditioned to believe that massive change requires massive disruption. That transformation only comes with luck, a breakthrough, or burnout. They think they need a new year, a new job, or a new version of themselves to even begin. But that's the lie. That's the illusion that keeps people stuck in the same cycle, year after year. The truth? Change doesn't begin with a new life. It begins with a new hour. 1 hour of clarity. 1 hour of structure. 1 hour of decision. That's the gateway. And if you don't believe that 1 hour can change everything, it's because you've never given yourself fully to it. Not intentionally. Not consistently. Not with a framework that actually builds something. Not the way we're about to show you here. This is not motivation for the sake of motivation. This is not about feeling good for 10 minutes and going back to the same patterns. This is about choosing to lead your life, the way Stephen Covey taught, by beginning with the end in mind, by aligning your daily actions with your deepest values, by putting first things first, even when it's uncomfortable. Because let me tell you something up front, if you don't take control of your time, someone else will. If you don't lead yourself intentionally, life will default you into distraction, into reaction, into doing more but becoming less. And most people, that's where they live. They're exhausted, overstimulated, underfocused. They run from task to task, call to call, screen to screen, but they're not becoming better. Just busier, just more fragmented. But you're here for a reason. You're searching for more. You've had enough of surviving, of being stuck in neutral. You're ready to build something that lasts. And not one day, but now, with what you have, where you are. In this video, I'm going to show you how to use 1 focused hour a day to build clarity, mastery, health, connection, and wealth. Not from theory, but from action, from structure, from alignment. This isn't about hustle. This is about leadership. The most important kind, self-leadership. We'll walk through how to take back your mornings. How to protect your time like it's your most valuable asset, because it is. How to align your energy with your purpose. How to practice instead of overthink. How to reflect with intention. And how to build real results in your body, your relationships, your income, your mindset, 1 focused hour at a time. This framework is rooted in the same principles that Stephen Covey taught for decades. You'll hear echoes of the 7 habits, but you won't get theory. You'll get action. You'll get process. You'll get truth. The kind that forces you to take responsibility, not just feel inspired. Because let's get something straight from the beginning. Transformation is not an event. It's not a mood. It's not a weekend seminar. Transformation is a daily decision. You decide to become the person who doesn't wait for permission, who doesn't make excuses, who doesn't need ideal conditions. You just show up. You choose discipline. You move forward, not perfectly, but consistently. That's what this is about. And before we go any further, I want you to picture something. 1 year from now, what if you looked back and realized that every single day for the past 12 months, you invested 1 full hour into becoming the person you were meant to be? That's 365 hours. That's the equivalent of more than 9 full-time work weeks, not wasted on tasks, but invested in purpose. What could you become with that level of intentionality? A new business? A new body? A new mindset? A new sense of calm and confidence? A stronger family? A sharper mind? A life you're actually proud to wake up to? All of that is real, but it starts with 1 choice. You don't need to change your whole life right now. You need to claim the next hour, and then the next. That's the shift. That's the new foundation. Here's what I want you to take away before we start the first step. Nothing changes until your schedule changes. Identity follows action. And when you build structure around your values, you become dangerous to your old limitations. Most people drift. You're going to decide. Most people react. You're going to lead. Most people break promises to themselves. You're going to rebuild trust with yourself, 1 hour at a time. And that's not a motivational phrase. That's a pattern you can follow. a structure you can install, a discipline you can embody. So if you're ready, here's what we'll do. We'll break down 8 essential areas where one intentional hour a day can upgrade everything. And we'll give you the tools, the challenges, and the process to make it real, not someday, but starting today. Because this isn't about watching someone else transform. This is about finally showing up for the version of you that's been waiting underneath all the noise. The version that doesn't need perfect conditions. Just 1 hour. Let's begin. Let's start where real change begins. The first hour of your day. Not with motivation, not with a checklist, but with ownership. Because how you begin your day is how you begin your life. That first hour is not just a stretch of time. It's a statement of identity, a declaration of what matters to you. It sets the tone, the focus, and the direction for everything that follows. And the truth is, most people have already lost the day before they've even left their bed. They reach for the phone. They check the news. They scroll. They compare. They react. And just like that, their mind is no longer their own. Their focus has been hijacked. Their priorities replaced by noise. Their first decisions of the day, completely outsourced. But if you want to reclaim your life, you have to start by reclaiming your morning. More specifically, your first hour. Stephen Covey taught that we must act with the end in mind. And if the end is a purposeful, disciplined, fulfilling life, then your first hour must reflect those values. Because it's not about having time. It's about making time for what defines your future. Let's get clear on something. Success is not an accident, and neither is chaos. If you don't intentionally plan your first hour, the world will do it for you. And the world doesn't care about your goals. The world will feed you distraction, urgency, conflict, and comparison, and call it normal. So here's your decision. You either lead your morning or your morning leads you. You don't need to be a morning person to win the first hour. You need to be a disciplined person, a person who knows what matters, a person who understands that how you start determines how far you go. Let's make this practical. Tomorrow, when you wake up, don't just get out of bed. Step into leadership. The first thing you do, don't check your phone. Don't check what the world wants from you. Check what you want from yourself. What are you building? What do you value? Who are you becoming? Now ask, what actions support that? That's the mindset of someone who owns their life. Stephen Covey called it putting first things first. And that principle is not a quote, it's a discipline. So here's your new habit. Structure the first hour around your highest values. Let me give you a framework you can apply starting today. Clarity. Take 5 minutes to write down your top 3 priorities for the day. Not the things you have to do. The things that truly move your life forward. This creates direction. Gratitude. Write down 3 things you're thankful for. It shifts your state, anchors your mindset, keeps your perspective grounded. Movement. Even 10 minutes of stretching or walking engages your body and primes your energy for focused work. Reading. Spend at least 10 minutes feeding your mind. Choose content that sharpens you. Books that elevate. No fluff. No hype. Planning. Review your schedule. Set intentions. Anticipate challenges. Eliminate what's not aligned with your values. Stillness. Spend a few minutes in silence or reflection. No input, just presence. That's how you train your mind to respond instead of react. You don't need to do all of these at once. Start small. Build the routine that fits you. But whatever you do, don't let that hour go to waste. The biggest mistake people make is thinking the first hour doesn't matter, that they'll get focused later, that they'll find discipline after coffee. But by then, the mind is already scattered. The momentum is already lost. Your first hour is your most leveraged hour. It's when your mind is clearest. Your willpower is highest. Your thoughts are most receptive to direction. It's your opportunity to build the day before the world intrudes. And I'll say this, you won't always feel like it. You'll have days where the bed feels more powerful than your purpose. That's okay. But that's when you choose discipline over comfort. Because discipline isn't about feeling ready. It's about doing what matters even when you don't feel like it. And over time, that's how you build trust with yourself. You start to believe, if I say I'll show up for my goals, I actually will. That belief changes everything. It rewires your identity. You stop negotiating with distractions. You stop postponing clarity. You become the kind of person who starts strong, on purpose, by design. And when you win the first hour, you're not just ahead on your calendar. You're aligned with your mission, your thoughts, your time, your habits, all moving in the same direction. Now here's a shift I want you to make. Stop thinking of the first hour as a routine. Think of it as your runway. Because if you take off without alignment, without preparation, without fuel, you crash. Or worse, you never lift at all. But if you give that hour structure, presence, intention, you rise. You gain momentum. You lead. And here's what that means long term. Every morning you reclaim is another vote for the person you're becoming. Not the one stuck in patterns. Not the one waiting for motivation. But the one who acts from vision, not emotion. You want to change your life? Start by changing how it begins. Don't hand over the first hour to chaos. Don't give it to apps, algorithms, or obligations. Give it to you, to your mind, your mission, your alignment. Because this hour isn't just about productivity, it's about identity. It's about becoming the kind of person who doesn't wait to be inspired to act, who doesn't ask for permission to build, who starts the day by creating direction, not reacting to noise. You don't need more hours. You need more ownership. And it starts with this one. So tomorrow, when you open your eyes, don't check your phone. Check your focus. Check your alignment. Check your values. And then lead. Because 1 hour of intention beats 10 hours of reaction. Every single time. And when you lead your first hour, the rest of your day learns how to follow. That's where we begin. Ready for the next step? Let's be clear about something. You don't need more motivation. You need alignment. Because motivation is a spark, but discipline is the engine. And discipline doesn't come from hype, from pressure, or from mood swings. It comes from identity, from seeing yourself as someone who follows through. That's what most people get wrong. They wait to feel inspired. They wait to feel ready. They wait for a wave of energy to hit so they can finally act. But life doesn't work like that. Not consistently. Not sustainably. Stephen Covey didn't teach people to wait for motivation. He taught them to lead themselves, to act based on principles, not circumstances, to align their behavior with who they truly want to become, not with how they feel in the moment. Because discipline is not about forcing yourself to do something. It's about deciding what kind of person you are. Let that sink in for a moment. When you say, "I'm not disciplined," what you're really saying is, "I don't see myself as the kind of person who follows through." That's not a behavior problem. That's an identity problem. And here's the good news. Identity is not fixed. It's shaped, reinforced, and rebuilt by the actions you take every day, especially the ones you take when no one is watching. So how do you become disciplined? You start by shifting the way you speak to yourself. You stop saying, "I need to be more consistent," and you start saying, "I am someone who honors my word." You stop saying, "I always mess this up," and you start saying, "I'm the kind of person who learns and adjusts." You stop identifying with your past, and you start declaring your future with action, not talk. Because behavior follows belief. If you see yourself as inconsistent, you'll act inconsistently. If you see yourself as weak, you'll avoid hard things. But if you start seeing yourself as someone who leads their life with intention, everything changes. Now let me give you something practical. Every time you show up and do what you said you would do, even in small ways, you reinforce a powerful internal message. I am a disciplined person. That message, repeated often enough, becomes the new default. You don't need to feel inspired every morning. You just need to feel aligned with who you're becoming. Stephen Covey called this principle integrity to self. Not just honesty, but internal congruence, making sure your daily actions reflect your core values. Because when your behavior and your values are in conflict, you live in tension. But when they align, you move with clarity, energy, and peace. So let's talk about how to apply this to your life. Starting today, think of discipline not as something you do when life feels perfect, but as something you do because your future depends on it. That 1 hour a day, it's not about tasks. It's about training. Training your mind to focus. Training your body to move. Training your emotions to respond, not react. Training your values to lead. And training your identity to rise. You're not just building habits. You're building a version of yourself that doesn't need constant reminders to show up. You just show up, because that's who you are now. But here's the hard truth. At first, it won't feel natural. In the beginning, discipline feels like a contradiction. You'll say you want change, but your old self will fight it. You'll resist structure. You'll resist the mirror. You'll try to negotiate with the very actions that would set you free. And that's normal. That resistance is not a sign that something's wrong. It's proof that something's shifting. Because growth always comes with friction. So what do you do when that resistance hits? You remind yourself that discipline is not about perfection. It's about persistence. It's about making the next right decision, not every right decision. And it's about never letting one missed hour become a missed week. You correct gently. You return quickly. You recommit daily. That's how identity is built, not in grand gestures, but in quiet choices. And eventually, something clicks. You stop needing reminders. You start trusting yourself. That's when the discipline becomes natural. Not because it's easy, but because it's who you are now. You're no longer chasing a new life. You're becoming it, 1 hour at a time. Let me give you a simple but powerful tool to reinforce this. Every morning, as part of your first hour, write one sentence in your journal. The kind of person I'm becoming is. Then finish it. Honestly. Consistently. Maybe today it's someone who honors their commitments, no matter how small. Tomorrow, someone who moves toward clarity instead of confusion. Next week, someone who leads their life with intention, even when it's inconvenient. Do this for 30 days. Not for performance, for programming. Because what you declare, you reinforce. What you reinforce, you believe. What you believe, you live. This is not about writing affirmations. This is about installing identity. Discipline without identity eventually breaks down. But when discipline is an expression of who you are, it sticks. It multiplies. It leads. Stephen Covey said, "Our behavior is a function of our decisions, not our conditions." In other words, you're not at the mercy of your mood. You're in charge of your standards. So make the decision, not to force yourself, but to lead yourself. You don't need to get it perfect. You just need to keep showing up as the person you've decided to become. That 1 hour, that's your lab. That's your proving ground. That's your vote, every day, for the life you say you want. And here's the beautiful part. The more you act like the person you want to be, the more you believe that's who you are. And once you believe it, you don't need discipline to wake up early. You're the kind of person who starts early. You don't need motivation to move your body. You're the kind of person who takes care of it. You don't need external validation to stay consistent, because consistency has become part of your identity. You don't chase momentum. You create it. You don't follow rules. You follow vision. And vision, rooted in identity, leads to transformation that actually lasts. So here's your challenge today. Before you try to do more, ask a better question. Who do I need to become to live the life I say I want? Then give that version of you 1 hour. Not tomorrow. Not next month. Today. Because the gap between who you are and who you want to be, it's not time. It's not knowledge. It's discipline, grounded in identity. And when those align, nothing can stop you. Most people are busy. Very few are clear. They wake up and jump into tasks. They start running before knowing where they're headed. They check off boxes, complete to-do lists, reply to messages, meet deadlines, and yet they still feel lost. That's not a lack of effort. That's a lack of direction. Stephen Covey taught that effectiveness doesn't begin with hustle, it begins with clarity. You don't become successful by doing more. You become successful by doing what matters most, with intention, on purpose, and in alignment with your deepest values. But let's be honest, most people don't stop to think about where they're going. They're reactive, not reflective. They say yes to everything, hoping it leads somewhere. And after weeks or months of constant motion, they wonder why nothing truly changes. Let me tell you something hard but freeing. Action without clarity is not progress, it's noise. You can spend years moving and still be stuck in the same place. Because speed means nothing if it's in the wrong direction. So before you fill your calendar, before you commit to more tasks, before you start pushing harder, you need to stop and ask, where am I really going? That one question changes everything. It pulls you out of survival mode and puts you back into leadership mode. It forces you to reconnect with your mission, your values, your identity. Because when you begin with the end in mind, like Covey taught, your actions gain precision. Your decisions have weight. Your hours have meaning. So let's make this practical. Before your 1-hour session each day, take 3 minutes, just 3, to answer 3 questions. What's my outcome? Why does it matter? What's the next action that aligns with both? You're not planning your whole life. You're not solving everything. You're just getting clear, today, now, here. Let's break it down. What's my outcome? Don't just move, define the destination. What are you actually trying to create? Progress without purpose is a trap. Are you trying to grow a skill? Solve a problem? Advance a project? Choose one thing, not 5. 1. Why does it matter? This is the fuel. If the answer is vague, like, I should, or I guess it's important, you won't follow through. Your brain needs a reason. A personal one. Something tied to your values, your identity, your vision. The stronger the why, the more resilient the follow-through. What's the next action? No fluff. No big picture brainstorming. Just the next clear, specific step. Something small enough to start, but important enough to matter. This 3-minute routine brings clarity to your hour. And that clarity is what separates leaders from wanderers. And here's why this works. Most people confuse productivity with purpose. They equate doing with progress. But if you're doing the wrong things faster, all you're doing is arriving at the wrong destination sooner. That's not leadership. That's noise. Stephen Covey warned about this. He said the enemy of the best is often the good. Meaning, the things that steal your time aren't always bad. They're just not aligned with your mission. They're distractions in disguise. So your job is not to do more. Your job is to define what matters most and do that with excellence. Let me give you an example. Imagine you sit down for your growth hour. You tell yourself, I want to improve my communication. That's a nice goal, but it's too vague. So you ask, what's my outcome today? You decide, I want to write 1 page that clearly explains my idea for a video project. Now you ask, why does it matter? Your answer, because if I can communicate clearly, I'll gain trust, inspire action, and stop wasting time repeating myself. Now, what's my next action? You answer, open my notebook, write a 1-paragraph summary of the video idea. Now the hour has structure, meaning, focus. You're not just working on communication. You're executing with purpose. And that's the difference. Purposeful execution compounds. It builds trust with yourself. It accelerates mastery. It saves months, sometimes years, of wasted energy. But here's the trap. Clarity takes effort. It's easier to keep moving than it is to pause and think. It's more comfortable to respond to urgency than to define what matters. But clarity is leadership. And leadership starts with questions, not just answers. So if you want to lead yourself well, stop treating clarity like a luxury. It's a necessity. Here's a tool you can use daily, the Daily Compass. Every morning, before you start your growth hour, open your notebook and write. Today, the most important outcome is, this matters because. The one action I will take is, keep it simple, clear, honest. Do this every day for 1 month. You'll be shocked at how focused your hours become. And not just during the hour, throughout the day. Because once you start training your mind to think in outcomes and values, you stop tolerating waste. You start saying no with confidence. You start seeing distractions for what they are. You stop mistaking motion for meaning. That's the real shift. From busy to intentional. From vague to precise. From scattered to powerful. Stephen Covey called this aligning your center. Acting from your core, not from your calendar. Not from your inbox. Not from your notifications. Because when you lead from your core, you don't just get more done. You get the right things done. Let me give you one more perspective. Every time you sit down to work on your future, you're faced with 2 paths. One is easy, familiar, full of things that look productive but aren't. The other is uncomfortable, focused, and driven by clarity. Most people choose the first, and that's why they stay stuck. You're going to choose the second, even when it's quiet, even when no one sees it, even when it requires effort. Because the pain of defining what matters is always less than the regret of wasting years on what doesn't. So tomorrow, when your hour begins, Don't jump in blindly. Pause. Clarify. Ask the question, where am I really going? And don't move until you answer. Because when your direction is clear, your energy becomes powerful. And that's how leaders act. With vision, with purpose, with clarity. There's something most people overlook in the pursuit of success. They think it's about doing more, faster, louder. They build routines. They chase discipline. They double down on action. But they miss something foundational, and it costs them everything. They stop learning, not because they don't care, but because they're busy. Because they believe learning is a luxury, something they'll return to later when life slows down, when success arrives, when everything makes sense. But here's the truth. If you're not learning, you're not leading. And if you're not leading yourself, no amount of action will take you anywhere that matters. Stephen Covey made it simple. Private victory comes before public victory. Meaningful external results only come after consistent internal growth. You can't shortcut that. You can't fake it. Because success isn't something you chase. It's something you become. And becoming requires education. Not formal education, but intentional, daily investment in your mind. The kind of education that develops character, not just competence. The kind that refines your thinking, strengthens your principles, sharpens your vision. So let's get one thing straight. Learning isn't optional. It's your edge. And your 1-hour routine is incomplete without it. Now, I'm not talking about random quotes or motivational scrolls. I'm talking about structured, focused, high-quality input that elevates your thinking. Because your life will never rise above the quality of your decisions. And your decisions will never rise above the quality of your thinking. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you deliberately fed your mind with wisdom, not noise? With depth, not distraction? Most people haven't done this in months, some in years, and they wonder why their thoughts feel chaotic, why their focus is scattered, why their standards drop the moment life gets hard. You can't expect to lead a powerful life with an untrained mind. Covey said it best, sharpen the saw. You can't keep cutting through the challenges of life with a dull blade. And your mind, that's the blade. If you don't keep it sharp, everything takes longer, feels heavier, and delivers less. So here's the principle. Every day, invest a portion of your hour into learning something that strengthens the way you see, think, speak, lead, and act. Because when you grow your mind, you grow your leadership. And when you grow your leadership, everything else expands with it. Your clarity, your choices, your confidence, your income, your relationships. It all starts here. Let's get practical. There are 3 simple learning formats that compound over time. Reading, choose books that teach you how to think. Biographies, strategy, communication, leadership, self-mastery, health, money, spiritual development rooted in values. Start with 10 pages a day. In 1 year, you'll have read 12 to 20 life-changing books. Listening, podcasts, audiobooks, recorded talks. Curate your input. Don't just listen to what's trending. Listen to what's true. Choose voices that challenge you, not just entertain you. Note-taking and reflection, don't just consume. Capture. Every time you hear something that resonates, write it down. Use a dedicated notebook. Title the page with the date. Write one idea, one insight, one question it provokes. That habit alone will change the way you retain and apply what you learn. Because knowledge is not power, applied knowledge is. And the only way to apply what you learn is to engage with it actively. Writing, processing, reflecting. That's how you move from concept to conviction. And here's the beauty of daily learning. It compounds. You won't see the change overnight. But in 3 months, you'll speak differently. In 6 months, you'll make decisions faster. In a year, you won't recognize how you used to think. This is how internal transformation works. Quietly, daily, intentionally. Let me show you the math. Read 10 pages a day. That's 3,650 pages a year. That's the equivalent of 12 to 15 full books. Spend 15 minutes a day listening to powerful content. That's over 90 hours a year. Capture one meaningful insight per day. That's 365 ideas that can shape your thinking forever. That's not small. That's identity change through repetition. And that identity? It's what drives everything else you're building. Discipline, direction, clarity, growth, wealth. It all follows who you believe you are and who you believe you can become. But here's the mistake most people make. They confuse learning with collecting. They gather more and more input, but never slow down long enough to process, apply, and personalize it. They consume endlessly, but transform nothing. That's not growth. That's distraction in disguise. So here's your rule. Don't just learn something. Do something with it. Each day, after your learning block, write down one action you'll take to apply the lesson, even in the smallest way. Example, you read about time blocking, you apply it to your afternoon schedule. You heard a principle about trust, you have a more honest conversation today. You learned something about posture, you fix your chair before your next call. Small actions, immediate application. That's how transformation sticks. And here's what starts to happen. Your mind starts associating learning with change. Not just entertainment, not just inspiration, but actual, visible growth. That creates motivation. Not the hype kind, the real kind. The kind that's built on progress. That's fueled by internal momentum. That reinforces belief. And that belief becomes confidence. And confidence, when grounded in character, becomes quiet leadership. The kind that doesn't shout, it shapes. Because the most powerful leaders don't try to impress you. They make you think. They make you better. And they do that because they've done it for themselves, day by day, hour by hour. So here's the challenge. Protect 20 minutes of your growth hour for learning. Every day, no exceptions, no multitasking, no background noise. You're not feeding your boredom. You're feeding your future. And as Covey said, if you don't make time to sharpen the saw, you'll spend your life working harder than you need to for results that never quite arrive. Let's not do that anymore. You want to grow? Educate your mind. You want to lead? Feed your thinking. You want to rise? Refuse to stay stuck in the level of understanding that created the life you're trying to change. The person you are becoming deserves better input. So give it to them. Every day, 1 hour at a time. Let's make something very clear. Knowledge doesn't transform your life. Action does. You can read the best books, listen to the best mentors, fill notebooks with insights, and still stay exactly the same. Why? Because information without application is just mental clutter. It makes you feel smarter, but it doesn't make you stronger. It fills your mind, but it doesn't form your habits. And habits, not ideas, are what build your future. Stephen Covey said, "To learn and not to do is really not to learn. To know and not to do is really not to know." That's the heart of this entire transformation. You're not here to collect ideas. You're here to build character. Not in theory, in behavior, in decision, in repeated, intentional action that aligns with who you want to become. That's how integrity is built, not by what you believe, but by how consistently you act on those beliefs. So let's cut to the chase. What you know means nothing if you don't live it. The books you read? They're wasted if you don't apply a single lesson. The podcasts you love? Just background noise if nothing changes. The insights you wrote down yesterday? They die unless they show up in your calendar today. And this is where most people get stuck. They learn. They nod. They feel inspired. And then they wait. They wait for the perfect moment to apply what they've learned. They wait to feel more ready, more confident, more organized. But that moment never comes. And the knowledge, once fresh and exciting, fades. It gets buried under the next video, the next idea, the next dopamine hit of learning something new. And still, nothing changes. Here's the truth. Knowledge without execution creates frustration. You feel like you're evolving, but your results say otherwise. You sound smarter, but you're still stuck. And deep down, you know it. So how do we break this? By shifting from passive consumption to intentional implementation. You don't need to change everything. You just need to turn one idea into one action every single day. And that starts right here, inside your 1 hour discipline. In Block 4, we talked about setting aside time to learn. Now we're going to take it a step further. Each day, you'll take a portion of that hour and turn learning into behavior. This is where your identity begins to harden, where your self-respect grows, where your belief in your own word is rebuilt, action by action. Let's get specific. Here's the process you'll follow. Learn, Dedicate 15 to 20 minutes to high-quality input. A book, a podcast, a training, one idea that matters. Extract. Write down one insight that hits you. One phrase, principle, or concept that speaks to your current life. Translate. Turn that insight into a question. How does this apply to my current reality? Decide. Write one action you can take today that expresses that idea. Simple, immediate, real. Do it within the same day, before the momentum fades, before your brain talks you out of it. Here's an example. Let's say you read about the power of proactive behavior, not reacting, but responding with responsibility. Your insight: I'm responsible for how I respond to everything. You translate that into, where have I been reacting emotionally instead of responding intentionally? Your action: in today's team meeting, I will pause before replying and choose to respond with clarity and calm. That's not massive, but it's meaningful. You didn't just read. You practiced. You didn't just collect. You expressed. And that act, done consistently, does more to rewire your brain than 100 hours of passive learning. Because repetition is the mother of mastery. You don't become wise by what you've read. You become wise by what you've lived. This is how character is shaped. Not in grand declarations, but in quiet choices. Not in motivational bursts, but in follow-through. Not in how much you know, but in how often you live what you already know. And this is the critical distinction between growth and entertainment. Entertainment says, that was powerful. Growth says, I'm applying that today. And here's the deeper reason this matters. Action creates alignment. Every time you apply what you've learned, you bring your inner world and your outer behavior into sync. That sync creates integrity. And integrity is the foundation of self-trust. When you trust yourself, really trust yourself, you stop seeking external validation. You don't need hype. You don't wait for ideal conditions. You don't get paralyzed by overthinking. You act. Not perfectly, but consistently. Because your actions are no longer fueled by pressure. They're fueled by identity. And that's when discipline becomes effortless. It's no longer a fight to get up early. It's who you are now. It's no longer a struggle to stay focused. It's how you operate. You're not trying to act disciplined. You've become disciplined because you live what you learn. Now let me make something clear. This doesn't mean you'll get it right every time. You won't. You'll forget. You'll miss a day. You'll take the easier route. That's okay. This isn't about perfection. It's about pattern. What matters is that you return. You reset. You don't let one missed action become a week of drift. That's what separates builders from dreamers. Dreamers say, I should get back to it. Builders say, let's get back to it now. So here's your challenge going forward. Every day, before you end your growth hour, answer this. What did I learn, and how will I live it today? One answer, one action. That's it. You don't need to plan your life. Just execute one truth. Because here's what happens over time. You learn, you apply, you evolve. You evolve, you trust yourself more, you lead better. You lead better, you create results, your confidence grows. And confidence built through character? That's unshakable. It's not based on hype. It's not borrowed from someone else. It's earned. Through repetition. Through responsibility. Through the daily decision to act like the person you say you want to become. And all of it starts with 1 hour. So tomorrow, when your session begins, don't just sit and absorb. Stand and act. Live what you've learned. Because knowledge is potential. Action is transformation. And transformation only belongs to those who move. Let me ask you something most people never ask themselves. How did I do today? It's a simple question, but most avoid it. Not because they don't care, but because it confronts them. It holds up a mirror. It requires honesty. And in a world that glorifies speed, noise, and movement, taking time to pause and reflect feels unnatural. But it's not unnatural. It's powerful. Stephen Covey called this the habit of renewal. And reflection is how that habit takes shape, not once a year, but every single day. Because transformation doesn't happen just by doing. It happens when you stop long enough to notice what's working, what's not, and who you're becoming in the process. Without reflection, growth becomes guesswork. You move fast but blind. You repeat habits that aren't serving you. You chase results that don't fulfill you. You stay busy, but disconnected. And over time, you confuse momentum with progress. But when you reflect, everything changes. You slow down long enough to ask better questions. You identify what to refine, what to eliminate, what to double down on. You stop reacting, and you start leading, not just others, but yourself. Let's get clear on what reflection really is. It's not overthinking. It's not judging yourself. It's not reliving mistakes or obsessing over regrets. Reflection is evaluation with purpose. It's leadership in slow motion. It's your opportunity to zoom out, not to escape reality, but to adjust it. Think of it like a pilot. Mid-flight, they constantly check the dashboard, not because something's wrong, but to stay on course. Wind shifts. Conditions change. If they don't correct, they drift. And even a 1-degree drift over time leads them hundreds of miles off target. You're no different. Without reflection, you drift. With reflection, you correct. So here's the truth. If you're not taking 5 minutes a day to review how you're living, you're gambling with your future. Let's stop that, starting now. Here's how to build a reflection habit that works. At the end of your 1-hour session, every day, take 5 minutes to run through this simple framework. Write your answers down. Don't think them. Don't type them. Use your hand. Use a pen. Use a notebook. 1. What did I do well today? Start with wins. Reinforce progress. Even small victories. Especially small victories. 2. What didn't work? Be honest. No judgment. Just clarity. What distracted you? What cost you momentum? 3. What will I do differently tomorrow? Turn awareness into intention. Commit to a change, not a wish, but a clear adjustment. That's it. 3 questions. 5 minutes. Huge results. Why does this work? Because awareness leads to ownership. Ownership leads to change. You can't improve what you won't examine. But once you see it, once you name it, it loses power over you. You're no longer reacting to invisible forces. You're designing with eyes wide open. And this design, this self-leadership, is what separates the effective from the exhausted. Most people go months without real reflection. They move from day to day hoping things will magically feel better. But feelings aren't strategy. And without strategy, your days control you. With strategy, you control your direction. And daily reflection gives you that control. Now here's something few people realize. Reflection builds momentum, not by making everything perfect, but by making each day better than the last. 1 adjustment a day, 1 degree of correction. That's all it takes. Think about it. If you get 1% more aligned every day, what happens in 30 days? In 90? In a year? You don't just improve, you evolve. And not in a reactive way, but in an intentional one. Covey believed in living from the inside out, aligning your daily behavior with your deepest values. But alignment isn't a one-time decision. It's a daily recalibration. And that recalibration happens through reflection. Let's talk about what it looks like in real life. You finish your hour. You sit down with your notebook. You ask yourself, what did I do well today? You realize, I started on time. I didn't check my phone. I finished the task I set out to do. Then you ask, what didn't work? You admit, I rushed through the reading. I didn't take time to process. I let distractions back in after 40 minutes. Then, what will I do differently tomorrow? Your answer, I'll use a timer to break my hour into 2 30-minute blocks. No phone. And I'll add 5 minutes after reading to write my insights. Simple, clear, actionable. You didn't just do the hour. You extracted value from it. You let it. And when you do that consistently, you start trusting yourself on a whole new level. Because now, your habits aren't accidental. They're evolving. They're intentional. They're anchored in feedback, not just emotion. This is how professionals think. They don't wait to feel better. They review. They adjust. They refine. And over time, those micro refinements turn into macro results. Now let's take it deeper. What happens when you reflect for a week? You start seeing patterns. You see that every Wednesday you drift. You notice that your energy drops after a certain activity. You realize that certain wins repeat, and certain mistakes do too. That awareness gives you power. You don't need a coach to fix you. You just need to listen to yourself. Because your life is speaking every day through your results, your reactions, your routines. Reflection lets you hear it clearly. And that clarity? That's your advantage. But you can't stop there. After reflection comes realignment. You ask, am I still heading where I want to go? Do my daily actions match my vision? Is my identity showing up in my calendar? If not, no guilt. Just adjust. You don't need to fix everything. Just tweak the system. Because excellence isn't made in giant leaps. It's made in tiny corrections, done consistently. That's how airplanes land perfectly. That's how athletes improve daily. That's how builders master their craft. And that's how you lead yourself to the life you actually want, one realigned hour at a time. So here's your system. Daily, ask the 3 reflection questions. Adjust one behavior the next day. Weekly, scan your notes. Identify repeating patterns. Choose one system-level upgrade. X, wake up time, workspace, planning method. Monthly, review your vision. Measure alignment. Adjust your process, not your purpose. This is leadership. This is mastery. This is what Covey meant when he said, "We must never become too busy sawing to take time to sharpen the saw." You're not just sharpening now. You're realigning. You're evolving. And all it takes is 5 minutes. So don't end your hour by rushing off. End it by leading. Ask better questions. Capture real answers. Adjust with humility. Because this isn't about perfection. It's about progress with eyes open. And when you reflect, you lead. And when you lead, you grow. And when you grow, consistently, intentionally, with feedback, you become the kind of person who doesn't just live on autopilot. You live on purpose. Let's talk about something most people only pay attention to when it's already failing. Your body. Not just your fitness. Not just your appearance. Your health. Your strength. Your physical energy. Your ability to show up, fully, consistently, and without breakdown. Because let's be honest, it's hard to lead your life if you're constantly exhausted. It's hard to think clearly when your body's inflamed, undernourished, dehydrated, or stiff from hours of sitting. It's hard to build something meaningful if you're constantly fighting fatigue, pain, or brain fog. And yet, people treat their body like an afterthought, like a machine that should just keep running on autopilot, no matter how much they neglect it. But here's the truth, and it's non-negotiable. Your body is your base. Stephen Covey taught that true effectiveness begins with private victory. And one of the most foundational victories you can win is over your own physiology. Because when your body is aligned, your mind is sharper. When your health improves, your emotions stabilize. When your energy rises, your standards follow. Everything is easier when your body is strong. This isn't about becoming a fitness model. It's about becoming someone who can lead themselves through fatigue, stress, and pressure without falling apart. It's not about looking good. It's about functioning at your highest capacity. And if you want to keep winning in your 1-hour-a-day system, you need to carve out part of that hour to invest in your physical self, intentionally, consistently, and without excuse. Let's strip away the myths. You don't need a gym membership. You don't need to run marathons. You don't need an intense personal trainer or a perfect diet plan. You need movement, discipline, and care. And above all, you need to see your body not as a vanity project, but as a strategic asset in the life you're building. Let's get practical. Inside your daily 1-hour discipline, you'll now dedicate a segment, even just 10 to 20 minutes, to physical renewal. The method is up to you. The goal is the same. Restore energy, rebuild clarity, protect long-term sustainability. Here are 4 practices that work, and why. Movement. Walk. Stretch. Do yoga. Lift light weights. Jump rope. Just move. Movement increases blood flow, clears mental fog, reduces stress hormones, and resets your nervous system. It doesn't have to be intense. It has to be consistent. Breath work. Deep breathing. Box breathing. Even 3 minutes of intentional breathing regulates your system. It transitions you from stress to presence. Most people breathe shallow and live shallow. Train your breath, and you train your attention. Hydration plus nutrition. Start your hour with water. Fuel your day with real food. You don't need to overthink it. Just avoid processed junk, excess sugar, and long stretches without fuel. Energy requires input. Garbage in, garbage out. Sunlight plus nature. If possible, step outside. Let light hit your skin. Let air touch your face. There's science and history behind this. Humans are wired to function better when connected to the natural environment. You don't need a forest. Just 5 minutes on a balcony can recenter your nervous system. The point is not perfection. The point is renewal. Because if you keep pushing your body while neglecting recovery, the breakdown is only a matter of time. You'll feel it in your mood, in your clarity, in your creativity, and eventually, in your results. Don't wait for a health scare to start respecting the machine that carries your purpose. Treat your health like your leadership depends on it, because it does. And here's where we go deeper. This isn't just about the body. It's about what happens to the spirit when the body is cared for. When you move intentionally, you remind yourself that you're alive. When you breathe deeply, you create space for your soul to rise above the noise. When you walk, when you stretch, when you strengthen, you're not just building muscle, you're reinforcing identity. You're saying, I am worth the effort. And that belief leaks into everything else. You speak differently. You think differently. You lead differently. Why? Because your internal state is aligned. Your energy is clean. Your mind is no longer competing with a body in distress. That's the invisible power of physical discipline. It gives your values a vessel. It makes presence possible. Now let's confront the excuse. I don't have time. You do. You're just spending it somewhere else. You don't need 90 minutes a day. You don't need to become obsessed. You need 15 minutes of commitment. Inside your daily growth hour, carve out space for the physical. Because if you don't make time for your health, you'll be forced to make time for illness. Stephen Covey called this sharpening the saw. And what most people don't realize is this. You don't sharpen your saw with hustle. You sharpen it with renewal. Physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. This is not extra. This is the foundation. You want to be creative, focused, driven, calm. Good luck doing any of that while running on 4 hours of sleep, processed food, and stress hormones. There is no wisdom in burnout. There is no virtue in neglect. You're not more dedicated because you ignore your body. You're just moving toward breakdown, faster. But the opposite is also true. You're not selfish when you care for your body. You're not wasting time when you stretch, breathe, or train. You're investing in a future where you can keep showing up, fully, powerfully, and with integrity. Because discipline with the body builds discipline in the mind. And discipline in the mind leads to clarity and direction. And clarity and direction changes everything. So here's your habit, starting today. Schedule your physical renewal inside your 1-hour system. Don't leave it to chance. It can be 10 minutes of movement plus 10 minutes of breath and stretch. A 20-minute walk while listening to your selected daily learning. A simple strength routine with bodyweight exercises. Or 5 minutes of sunlight plus 5 minutes of journaling plus 5 minutes of deep breathing. No pressure, just consistency. You don't do this because you're obsessed with health. You do this because your future deserves a strong, stable, and energized foundation. And here's something else Covey would remind us of. This is not about willpower. This is about principle. Your body is not a separate thing from your mission. It's a critical part of it. So move it, feed it, breathe into it, care for it, strengthen it, and watch what happens to your confidence. Because there's something powerful about walking into your day knowing, I've already invested in my mind. I've already aligned with my purpose. I've already respected my body. I'm not showing up from emptiness. I'm showing up from fullness. That's the advantage most people will never have. Because most people are distracted. You're aligned. You're strong. And 1 hour at a time, you're not just becoming more focused, you're becoming more complete. Mind, body, spirit, all working together. Let's step back for a moment. You've been building structure. You've been showing up. You've been investing in your discipline, your clarity, your learning, your health. You've started reclaiming 1 hour a day, not just as time, but as territory. Territory for your future. But now it's time to ask a different kind of question. What are you building all this for? Because productivity alone isn't enough. Discipline for discipline's sake turns into rigidity. Action without direction becomes burnout. And success, if disconnected from purpose, becomes empty. That's why this final step matters. Stephen Covey didn't teach people how to manage time so they could cram more into their calendar. He taught them how to live from the inside out, to build a life of principle, a life of character, a life of contribution. So today, we're not just talking about efficiency. We're talking about impact. We're talking about legacy. Because a life well lived isn't measured by how busy you are. It's measured by what you leave behind, by the people you build, the values you represent, the principles you pass forward. And here's the truth. All of that begins with how you spend your time now, especially the part of your time that no one sees. Let's go deeper. Inside your 1-hour framework, you've learned how to focus, reflect, move, think, and act with discipline. But the highest use of this hour is to align your actions with something greater than yourself. Because self-leadership isn't the end goal. It's the starting point. When you lead yourself well, you gain the strength to serve others deeply. And that is what transformation is really about. It's not about building a perfect life. It's about building a meaningful one. And meaning always lives in two places: purpose and people. Let's talk about purpose first. Purpose isn't a job title. It's not something you find in a career description or a business plan. Purpose is the reason behind the effort. It's the why behind the what. It's the reason you say no to distractions and yes to discipline. It's the force that keeps you grounded when storms hit. Because storms will hit. If you don't define your purpose, you'll drift. You'll default to goals that look good on paper but feel empty in your soul. You'll achieve milestones that don't actually move you. But when your hour is anchored in purpose, your results change. You're no longer just building skills. You're building direction. You're no longer working for approval. You're working from conviction. And when that happens, something inside of you becomes unshakable. That's why part of your daily hour, even just 5 minutes, must include a reconnection to purpose. Ask yourself daily, why does what I'm building matter? Who is it meant to serve? What principle is guiding this action? Write it down. Keep it in front of you. Because clarity of purpose is not a one-time decision. It's a daily renewal. Now let's talk about people. Because no matter how successful you become, if you build it alone, it won't feel like success. Stephen Covey reminded us that true maturity is the ability to move from independence to interdependence. Not to become dependent, but to live with connection, to build with others, to grow in community. Your 1 hour a day is powerful, but not just for your own benefit. It gives you the capacity to show up for others from overflow, not exhaustion. You lead your family better. You listen deeper. You communicate with clarity. You build trust with consistency. And that, more than any project, platform, or product, is what will define your life. Not what you had, but how you made others feel. Not how much you knew, but how much you served. Not what you built for yourself, but what you built that outlived you. That's legacy. And here's the beauty of it. You don't build legacy at the end of your life. You build it one day at a time, 1 hour at a time. Every time you choose growth over comfort. Every time you turn learning into action. Every time you care for your body, lead with values, reflect with honesty, and show up with intention. You're building it. You're becoming someone who doesn't just accumulate progress. You multiply impact. And that impact reaches further than you'll ever see. You'll inspire people you never meet. You'll shape conversations you're not even part of. You'll create a ripple that outlives your name because of how you lived when no one was watching. That's the power of intentional time. It doesn't just change your day. It changes your direction. And over time, it changes your identity. You go from someone trying to get through the day to someone who builds their day with purpose. You go from someone trying to be productive to someone who's effective. You go from someone reacting to life to someone designing it. And when your design is driven by purpose and connection, you build a life that matters. Not someday, now. So as we close this journey, I'll ask you one final question. What do you want to leave behind? And what hour are you giving to build it today? Don't overcomplicate it. Legacy isn't a grand achievement. It's how you love your people. It's how you keep your word. It's how you face each hour, not perfectly, but intentionally. So tomorrow, when your hour begins, remember, this isn't just about being better. It's about building something meaningful. You have the system now. You have the structure. You have the clarity. You have the decision. All that's left is the consistency. Because legacies aren't built in a single moment. They're built in daily moments, one aligned, disciplined, purpose-driven hour at a time. And you're already building yours. Keep going. You've heard it all now. Not just the theory, not just the vision, but the system, the structure, the truth. That transformation doesn't demand a miracle. It doesn't wait for the perfect time. It doesn't require your whole life to be fixed overnight. It requires 1 hour. 1 hour where you stop running in circles and start building in alignment. 1 hour where you lead instead of react. 1 hour where you return to your values, your priorities, your identity. 1 hour where you choose to live on purpose. Because in the end, that's all transformation really is. Consistent choices stacked on top of each other until they stop being what you do and start becoming who you are. That's what you've begun here. You've chosen to reclaim your time, to protect your energy, to think clearly, to learn intentionally, to act with discipline, to reflect with honesty, to renew your body, to align with purpose. And through that, you're not just becoming more productive. You're becoming someone different, someone stronger, someone clearer, someone who doesn't wait for direction from the world, but creates it from within. That's the version of you that the world needs. Not a perfect version, not a finished product, but a person who shows up daily, faithfully, consistently. And now you know how. You know that it doesn't take hours of your life. It takes 1 hour where the noise fades and your future gets louder. 1 hour where you stop postponing the life you want and start building it brick by brick. 1 hour where you finally make peace with who you used to be and choose to become someone new. So here's what I want you to do now. Not tomorrow, not next week. Now, look at your calendar. Find the next hour you can own and block it. Name it. Protect it. That hour is not for scrolling. It's not for reacting. It's not for drifting. It's for building. And once that hour starts, commit to it fully. Because that hour is your vote, your statement, your proof that you're no longer available for the version of you that used to settle. That you're no longer waiting to feel ready. That you're no longer negotiating with mediocrity. This is who you are now. Someone who shows up. Someone who finishes what they start. Someone who lives aligned. Not perfectly, but on purpose. So don't let this be just another video. Let it be a shift. Let it be the line in the sand between who you've been and who you're becoming. And remember this. Change doesn't happen when you know what to do. Change happens when you do what you know, daily, consistently, intentionally. You've got the map now. You've got the tools. You've got the power. All that's left is your decision. So choose your hour and start building. 1 hour, 1 decision, 1 new you. And if this message spoke to you, not just in your mind, but in your identity, don't stop here. The next chapter is already waiting. Watch the next video. It will show you how to protect the transformation you just started, even when the world tries to pull you back. Because growth doesn't end. It expands. Let's keep building.